Thanks for coming out on a Tuesday. How awesome is that? So I'm Cathy Leaf. I live in North Hudson, the village of North Hudson, home of Pepperfest. And I have been in St. Croix County for 23 years now. I was born and raised in central Wisconsin, but then ended up over here in this beautiful part of the state. So I became involved in local politics as a Village of North Hudson trustee many moons ago. And then I used to recruit candidates, and then all of a sudden I became one for county board, and now I'm seeking my third term for the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors. So democracy is a participatory game, right? We all have to be involved. And when people talk about the government, we sort of go, well, we're the government, right? Like, this is what you learned in high school civics. So let's see what we can remember. So just a quick overview. I like to do an agenda so that we all keep on track. And I have Erica here with her little cards if I start to run long. So she's going to be a stickler about that. But just an overview of our government branches, how our municipal and county government's different, and then the importance of government, local, federal, state, in our lives. And then, of course, I know you have questions because there's a whole room full of smart people here that are going to ask me questions. And those online, hi, those online. So let's see what we remember. So this is a quiz. Tell me, what are the three branches of federal government? Judiciary, legislative, and executive. 100%, you're right. Now, how about state government? Same. Okay, now you can move on. You're 100% right. So obviously the three branches of federal government are House and Senate, that's the legislative, our executive is our president, President Biden, and our judicial are our federal courts. So our three branches of state government are Assembly and Senate.
Yeah, you have to use the microphone.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Thank you. I should just actually move this.
Focus.
Anyway, three branches of state government. Legislative would be the Assembly and Senate. Executive would be our governor, in this case it's Governor Evers. And in the judicial is our state courts. Go ahead. So 33 Senate districts. So in those 33 districts, those are 4-year terms. In each of those Senate districts, they're divided into 3 assembly districts. And we know the maps are a mess right now, so I won't even get into that. But each of those assembly districts are 2-year terms. So that means in even numbered years in November, we have half of the senators and all of the assembly up for election. Pretty basic, right? All the stuff that Carrie probably taught you, right? I have a former, for those of you online, Carrie Kittle is here, and he's a former teacher, so he's going to hold me accountable for anything I get wrong in this presentation. Next slide, please. So the Wisconsin Constitution describes what Wisconsin government should look like. The U.S. Constitution basically is for all other laws in Wisconsin. So if Wisconsin can't take up anything that is unconstitutional to the U.S. Constitution. Our Wisconsin statutes are ordinary state laws that affect everybody, and administrative codes that govern state departments, agencies, such as the DNR. It's a lot of layers, as you can tell. How many counties in Wisconsin? You can see it up on the slide. 72. So there are 1,253 towns, 190 cities, and 411 villages. So basically, towns, cities, and villages are general purpose government. So they're the ones that support your day-to-day services. They make sure your streets are paved and plowed. All of the things that you take, basically, a lot of people take for granted and wonder, where your tax dollars are going are those services. So municipalities and counties work together through intergovernmental cooperations and agreements. We have several within our county alone to provide local services to residents. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm whipping through this because I want to get to your questions. So basically, how do the branches work together? So counties are really considered the administrative subdivisions of the state. So towns were created within the counties to basically enable sparsely populated areas to sort of control their own government to a certain extent. Villages and cities are for population centers that they can handle their local affairs. And all of the general purpose districts determine their own budgets, they establish fees, they impose property taxes, and incur debt. So there's many different kinds of cities. This was actually pretty interesting to me. Depending on your population, depends on which class your city is, right? So bigger cities of more than 150,000 are first-class cities. Cities of less than 150 but more than 39,000 are second class. And cities of 10,000 and less than 39 are third class. And then there is a fourth class as well. So in a city, you have a mayor or a city manager. You have a city council. And the chief executive officer of the city would be the mayor or the city manager. And the members of the council are elected in aldermanic districts, and the mayor is elected at large. It's the same, it's like here it is in Hudson. So villages, I was a village trustee, so there's trustees, there's a village president, and the president and the trustees are elected at large. We don't have aldermanic districts in villages. And actually, the whole village is the legislative body of the village. So I didn't know this. This is actually quite interesting. So mayors have more power than a village president. So just note that for some of us that live in villages. Mayors have veto power and act as the city's chief executive officer. They preside over common council meetings. They break ties. And they do have, they're not counted in a quorum. The village president presides over the board meetings, is part of the quorum, and they do not have any veto power. So their powers are somewhat more limited than a mayor. In our townships, which we have many in the state, they're governed by a town chairperson and 2 to 4 supervisors that are in districts. And the board is supported by an appointed or elected clerk and a treasurer or combined clerk-treasurer. So this is the stuff I know best, county government. So our authority, and we're of course different because nothing can be normal in our state. But Chapter 59 is our authority. We are a body corporate that can be sued or sue, and our powers are limited by state statutes. So they're governed by a board of supervisors. In our county, we have 19 supervisors. So there's 3 different kinds of county board structure. There could be a county executive, like bigger cities like Milwaukee have county executives. There's a county administrator, which is the function that we have here in St. Croix County. Or there's a county administrative coordinator, in that there's not as many of those in our state. You can see how the breakup is. More and more counties are going to the administrative route. So this, basically, he's the chief executive administrator of the county, responsible for coordinating all administrative and management functions, appoints and supervises department heads, appoints members to boards and commissions, and submits the annual budget. I have props. This is our annual budget. So when people ask us what we do, this is really primarily what we do. Many tabs, a lot of paper. So what does a county board supervisor do anyway? What do we do? Dan, what do we do?
We are an extension of the state government, and we need to follow and perform the state law. And beyond that, we will make law which do not exceed state law, but conform to it. We provide for the health, safety, and welfare of people who live within the borders of St. Croix County.
Exactly. So, good answer. So we are the policy arm of the county. We are not involved in the operational control of day-to-day department stuff. That's not our job. That's the county administrator's job. We stay out of that business. So we really are the policymakers. So some people had asked when I was putting this together about how the committees work. So they basically, we monitor performances of our departments, review and make budget recommendations. We can draft ordinances and resolutions, and we can assist in policy development. And then the next slide, I think, lists all of the committees. So there are 5 main committees here, well, 4 standing committees and 1 board. So administration has 5 supervisors on it. Community development, which our chair is sitting in the back there, has 5 supervisors. Public protection and judiciary is one that I serve on. And transportation, they all have 5. The Health and Human Services Board is different. It has 6 supervisors. Those positions are appointed by the county administrator. The other 4 are appointed by the county board chair. So whenever we have an election, we fill out a preference sheet and identify which committees, standing committees we have interest in being on. And then the newly elected county board chair and the administrator will sit down and make the selections. So that's how that happens. Now, when we have our first initial meeting of the county board committee, that's when that committee selects the chair and vice chair for that particular committee. So that's how that happens, in case you're wondering. So we basically have to be, we are all accountable to you. That's what we do. We hear you, we listen to you, we hear your issues. We determine what services to be provided. One thing that a lot of people, and actually through this budget exercise, was at the committee level, we went through and said, okay, of all the services that this department handles, how many of them are mandated? And you will find with Health and Human Services that the majority of those services are mandated by the state. So that is not something that you can cut. So when we start getting into budget and levy issues, it becomes tricky because you are obligated to have certain things, right? The mandated services. So we have, unfortunately, a lot of unfunded mandates. So, for example, if you have a child who is in an out-of-home placement in another county, the county is paying, Health and Human Services pays for that placement. And that, how do you, so when you're budgeting from year to year as a department head, and John Krizik's in the back too, former administrator, will tell you that's a little bit tricky. You don't know how much that's going to cost. In our judicial services, we've had to have interpreters for some of our defendants in many different languages, and we have to get them from the Twin Cities. So that costs money. So there are some things that are unpredictable, and so you have to sort of plan as best you can, and sometimes it gets messy because of that. So we adopt the budget, which is that thing. And then set the levy. So policy versus administration, right? So policy is, will the county establish a hiking trail? And the why is, will it benefit us as residents, right? So the administration side, so staff and the actual county staff will say, okay, how do we do it, when, where, and get estimates for what it's going to cost. So we really are the higher level, like, hey, we'd like to have a trail system. It'd be great. We can, and that's one of the things when we did our strategic plan, it's a lot of the things that people like about St. Croix County are beautiful natural resources and trails, right? Anyway, that's just an example, but you could pick anything else and it would function sort of the same way. Go ahead. Oh, examples of collaboration. So I have a few, and I think if there's others here that have examples, but so I have one that is a couple that are really great and then one that's not really great. So we'll start with the really great ones. So we were given some ARPA dollars, right, after COVID. So we have used those ARPA dollars to do a number of things, to fund positions, we recently reallocated unused ARPA dollars to fund CASA, court-appointed special advocacy program, and we did that, yes, we should get an applause for that. So it's a wonderful program. It's different than a guardian ad litem, where I can give a whole talk about that, about CASA. But we were able to get that group on good footing with a chunk of money so that they will be able to be self-sustaining in the next probably 3 years. 6 years? Okay. Anyway, we gave them a chunk of money and it's going to great use. So another thing that happened that seemed like it was good, but it's not great, was that budget from the state had an increase in money for ADRC, so Aging Disability Resource Councils. Every county in the state has one. So there hasn't been an increase in years, like 2 decades, something like that. Well, there was an increase provided in the budget, but when it comes down to the actual math, our county would lose money in the whole process, which is obviously not the intent of what they decided to do. So we have time, we have a couple years to do some lobbying through the counties association and with our legislatures to try to fix it. It was definitely something that wasn't intended when they did the legislation. It's just a matter of how they implemented the law, which is unfortunate. So we have good things and bad things. And I think it was in 2017, I believe, the county joined a lawsuit against the opioid manufacturers, and we joined several other counties in the state as part of that lawsuit, and it was a federal suit. We have a large amount of money coming in, and we've used that money to fund a mental health professional in the jail for at least the next 10 years. So we've been able to, yeah, that was good too. So we're trying to look ahead, and that's part of what a county board should do, is look ahead and be visionary about how we can set ourselves up. We're the 3rd fastest growing county in the state. We obviously, and with that come more demand for services. We are expanding the government center. If you haven't driven past it recently, you'll see that. We should be in there in 26? 25. So it's definitely needed. You will see on your ballot in April a referendum question regarding additional positions for public safety and mental health. Public safety and mental health. So there's going to be another question, a referendum question. And it's different than the previous one. This one is much more focused. It has a lower price tag, but it involves more mental health co-responders that help law enforcement with people that are experiencing a mental health crisis. And they oftentimes, once the scene is secure, the police can leave and the mental health professional works with the person and gets them the services that they need. That is on there. There's also a juvenile justice support person, some corrections officers, and an investigator, and a clerk of courts position. So it's a few positions that we would like to increase our levy for moving forward. Because as I just said, we're the 3rd fastest growing county, so with that comes more need for services. And we did support putting more law enforcement on the streets, which is great. But we also need to make sure they're one arm of the judiciary, so we need to make sure that the other services are keeping up and that we're trying to go upstream in our tactics with mental health in terms of keeping people out of the jail in the first place, which I'm all about upstream tactics, to get people the services that they need before they end up in crisis. One thing that we are trying to do one of our biggest allies is the Wisconsin Counties Association, in terms of they represent us as counties, and they are a lobbying arm, and they will help us at the state legislature. They were able to secure a more shared revenue package this year, so more money is coming to each county and municipalities benefit from this too, from the state. So that's a huge deal. But we can also, there are all these other issues we could work on. We need more mental health services here. We need a crisis center here, close. The closest, a lot of times our law enforcement end up having to take people to Winnebago, right? It's not a great experience for anyone involved. It takes 2 deputies and then the person in crisis down there, and that's not great. So ideally, we're looking at grants through Health and Human Services to try to have a crisis center locally, which would be a huge thing. So more to come on that. Anyway, you can see where my passions lie related to human services. Anyway.
There are 72 counties in Wisconsin, keeping together the fabric which makes our communities great places to live, work, and raise a family. While we know what county we live in, most of us don't know what counties do. Think about your day so far. Did you get to where you are on a state highway or a county road? That road was maintained by the county. If it snowed last night, guess how the road got salted and cleared? That's right. A county snowplow was out there working for you. Whether you realize it or not, your county is part of almost every milestone in your life. The Register of Deeds provides us with birth and death certificates. When you bought your home, the Register of Deeds recorded the sale. Getting married? You'll need to stop at the county clerk's office to make it official with a marriage license. Have you voted? The county clerk oversees all elections. Counties also play an important role in economic development by encouraging new investment in our communities. This investment results in new jobs and a higher quality of life for our citizens. Counties do lots of other important things too. Have an emergency? The 911 dispatch center is run by your county, and county sheriffs provide law enforcement and operate the jails. Counties also operate the state court system. County health departments protect public health and make sure our communities stay healthy. Counties are responsible for the places you love to go, like county parks, airports, and zoos. And counties help care for many of our most vulnerable citizens. The Human Services Department looks out for our children, the elderly, and people with disabilities, and administers state and federal aid programs. Counties also help farmers through conservation efforts and work to keep our lakes and rivers clean. So even though you may not be aware of it, counties touch nearly every aspect of your life. What may be even more surprising, however, is what a bargain county services are. While we all know the feeling of opening up our property tax bill a few weeks before the holidays, did you know counties account for less than 20% of the average property tax bill? That's right. Less than 20 cents on every dollar you pay in property taxes goes to fund the services which make Wisconsin such a wonderful place. The state relies on counties to provide the best state services efficiently and at the lowest possible cost to taxpayers. So that's the county story. Want to learn more? Get to know your county elected officials at your county's website. Check out a meeting of your county board. It's open to the public and held at your local courthouse. Or visit the Wisconsin Counties Association at www.wicounties.org. Counties, helping to make Wisconsin great.
You probably have questions. I probably talked too fast. Oh, yes. I remember what I said about it being a participatory sport. That means you need to all be involved. So how do I keep in touch? How do we know, right? So keeping in touch with the county, go to our county website is very good at layout now. You can find things pretty easily. Look at the board agendas, see what's on there. You can review old meetings. There's videos posted. Agendas are always posted anything posted 24 hours before the meeting is considered final. Sometimes there are revisions, but up until the 24 hours. The River Channel is a great resource for keeping us informed, really. I mean, we are in this news vacuum. We already know that, right? So keeping us informed about what's happening locally. And then Wisconsin Eye, if you don't know what that is. Most of you probably do. I'm in a room full of smart people. But it's wonderful to keep track of committee meetings and what's happening at the state legislature because, we really are. We are really in a news void. So I appreciate all of those things for us to use. And then I think I was just going to do questions. Questions? Celeste.
Okay. So you mentioned the state legislature. You mentioned sort of the federal, state, and local levels of government. Could you make a general comment regarding since like the 2010 elections when the Republicans started to take over the state legislature? What have been the trends in terms of mandates on county and local government versus state funding?
Okay, so the question was, since 2010, what has the trend been in legislative action related to mandates versus funding?
Yeah.
Right, so we've had more unfunded mandates since 2010. I mean, people at all levels of government would feel that. That's one of the reasons why we're having to go out to referendum so often, and I know school boards are too for various things because they need to. The fact of the matter is, it costs a lot. Inflation is happening. transportation, I mean, just the cost to run a government and a school have gone up, and we haven't seen much more money. So, and some of the mandates, like you said, when I was talking about the court-appointed, like the court-mandated placements, there isn't anything to help us with that. So, like, we need more awareness at the state level of how they can help us with some of these complicated issues. But that's been the trend, has been more requirements and less money. And I think it gets back to the all politics is local. Like, your local politics affect you far more than federal. And I didn't understand that until I was much older. But it's true. Everybody wants to come out for the presidential elections because it's the cool thing, which it is, and it's super important. But you know what? You need to vote for those local folks, because if you don't, then you end up with someone you might not want, and you have to undo it. So I think, to your point, and especially when we're in the kind of low information, I mean, I know River Channel does what they can, and so do the local papers, but we are in a news vacuum. And especially when it comes to local issues, you know, we might get some of the state stuff that makes a lot of, you know, salacious headlines, but we don't really necessarily know everything that's happening within our municipalities. So that's why having friends like Celeste and other people in this room that can talk to a bunch of their friends who talk to their friends, and it gets into the relational voter, right? So you talk to 10 people, those people talk to 10 people, about candidates. Have a meet and greet. I'm always happy as a candidate in District 4 to come to anyone's home and do a meet and greet if somebody wants to talk to me about what issues are bothering them. I don't care. Come on, bring it. That's what I'm supposed to do. So I think there are a lot of other people that are electeds that would do the same thing. And just to get like, people want to know. I always love getting signatures and talking to people and figuring out, you know, what their life is like and getting to know them a little bit better, because it influences how I legislate and how I serve. Yep. Thank you, everybody.